Picture this. You wake up at 6 a.m., clamor on your Jinko jeans, eat a bowl of Sprinkle Spangles, and haul your ass to school. You've yet to discover caffeine, and they have the audacity to try and teach you geometry this early in the morning. Then at around 10, you get shoved to the feeding trough where they serve you a gummy pizza, a mound of corn, and to wash it all down, a carton of milk. Flammerific. But one day you notice that the milk cartons are gone, replaced by these weird membranous lactose amoebas. Let me introduce you to the world of milk pouches. Hey, my house looks different. Then again, a lot has happened in the 10 years since my last upload. I wonder if Obama is still president. There's that little cat still lives here. Ugh. You heard me right. Milk pouches. Milk served in a plastic bag. This was a thing in my school district, and I've seen plenty of people remark on the pouches appearing in their schools, if ever so briefly. But what was this all about? Why bagged milk? Well, let's talk about the importance of school lunches, and maybe we can pinpoint the moment everything goes off the rails.
I'll have long since outgrown you.
And you'll be history.
Milk. It does a body good.
In the early days of schooling, when students lived near the schoolhouse and towns were the size of a Costco parking lot, children would just go home during their lunch break. I imagine they enjoyed a hearty meal of bread soup, parsnips, and string thing, made of actual string. But as towns expanded, students were pushed further from a central hub. Going home was out of the question. You already walked an hour uphill in the snow to get here. No parsnip is worth that round trip. By the early 1900s, as a result of fast-growing industrialization, many children lived in poverty, and teachers began to realize that students were showing up underfed and malnourished. And so schools began hiring cooks to prepare and serve meals. Thus began the American institution of the noble lunch lady. It was probably the 1904 book Poverty by Robert Hunter that popularized the radical notion of feeding children, when he said, "Learning is difficult because hungry stomachs and languid bodies and thin blood are not able to feed the brain. It is utter folly from the point of view of learning to have a compulsory school law which compels children in that weak physical and mental state, which results from poverty, to drag themselves to school and sit at their desks, learning little or nothing at all." Rest in peace, Robert Hunter. You would have loved Lunchly. It soon became apparent that state and local governments could not afford to feed their populations without a subsidy. So, the federal government stepped in and did what it does best. Serve a heaping bowl of bureaucracy.
Hey, milk it does a body.
Milk it does a body good. Pass it on.
During the Great Depression of the 1930s, farmers were unable to sell their surplus through traditional means. There just wasn't a demand in the markets. I mean, you can't sell to people that don't got money. And all that food waste is just going to destroy the prices of commodities. Isn't capitalism neat? The Secretary of Agriculture allotted himself the budget to buy the price-depressing surplus and divert it into the food subsidies, including school lunch programs. The program saw success and was instigated as law in 1946 on the heels of that New Deal thingy. And government mandates ensured that all foods received by schools met nutritional guidelines. For instance, string things could no longer be made of actual string. Good on. Now, I have to mention the free breakfast program, which was authorized in 1975 and originally pioneered by the Black Panther Party a decade prior as part of its survival program, which was a series of initiatives to organize and improve their communities without government intervention. The government then intervened and shut the whole thing down with a combination of propaganda and violence. But the popularity of the free breakfast program created a demand that the federal government had to fill. So you can thank the Black Panther Party for the free breakfasts. So, getting back to the agricultural subsidies, guess what was one of the biggest commodities purchased by the government? Parsnips. No, wait. Milk. On the surface, this makes perfect sense. It's relatively cheap and can provide calcium, vitamin D, and potassium, so it seems like a perfect solution if you ignore the inherent racism of it. But we'll get back to that. Let's flash forward to 1966, to the land of maple syrup and Doug Ford. Canada. Ew, it's touching Upper Michigan. Throw it out.
No!
I'm afraid your time is almost up.
American Chemical Company and Captain Planet's supervillain, DuPont, developed a method of sealing liquids in plastic. The idea being it would be easier to ship, store, and preserve. Test markets sprang up in Montreal and Vancouver and later became widely adopted in the 1970s after Canada embraced the metric system. I'm sorry, are you too good for Imperial, Canada? I've tried your beverage. It's mid. You see, it was easier to resize plastic bags to adhere to a metric standard than to manufacture all new paper cartons or glass bottles where you gotta make all the new machines and everything. Who has time for that? So each milk bag was sized to contain about 1 1/3 liters of liquid. In imperial measurements, that's about 2.5 cheeseburgers. That's how we measure things here in America. Speaking of cheeseburgers, it's 10 a.m. and I need a beverage to wash down this reheated meat patty. Glad I got my carton of... What the hell is this? Yes, in 1989, bagged milk slithered its way across the border and into the American school cafeterias. Wikipedia claims that by 1993, over 3 million milk bags are being served by 24 states. And you best not question the authority of the WIC. At my school, we weren't just tossed a bag of milk and expected to make sense of this atrocity. No, our school was visited by our food supplier, Aramark or something. The representative lady showed us the proper way to puncture the pouches with the little pointy straws. It was like an hour-long presentation. This was like serious business. So how does it work? Well, I tried my best to recapture the magic. Alright, so it's something like this. You just got like this plastic bag with like milk kind of just sludging around inside. And it came with a little straw that was taped to it. Let's pull this out. So, the secret is you have to make a little air bubble on it. Like this. You have to like squeeze it. Make like an air pouch. And then you take the straw, and then you go. About what I expected to happen. Chocolatey. And to be honest, I kind of liked the milk pouches. Yeah, they look dumb as heck, like MacGyver catheters, but there was something so satisfying about it. With its shape, you could squeeze every last drop out. Kind of reminds me of Capri Sun. Liquid cool. I didn't really miss the milk cartons. They had kind of a funky smell, which, as a neurospicy kid, was not what you want. Although I did miss seeing the little smile on the carton spout. I can't be the only one that saw a little smile, right? Look at that. Aww. Now that Airmark lady did bring up a good point. Empty milk pouches take up less space in the landfill than cartons. They showed us some chart like this. Oh yeah, sure, I'll take your word for it. For a time, we even had juices in plastic pouches. Ha! Look at this fucking guy. And so my childhood was filled with drinkable balloons. And nothing bad could possibly come of giving a whole cafeteria of children what is essentially a water balloon of milk. Every so often I'd witness the metamorphosis of the humble milk amoeba into a lethal projectile. Bam! Milk everywhere! And then the kid who did it would get, like, detention. Heavy detention. The school did not want its whole population to weaponize the dairy, so they cracked down on it. But according to other anecdotes, lunch would devolve into full-scale milk wars. Of course, it's Reddit, so grain of salt and all that. Some districts even stopped carrying the milk pouches after 1 year because of frequent milk wars. We had them in my district for several years, and by the time I was in high school, it was back to milk cartons. Actually, for me, it was back to drinking soda and purple stuff because I thought milk was disgusting. Which brings me to my next point. By now, you may have had a thought cross your mind. What about the kids who are lactose intolerant? Schools have a simple solution to that.
Fuck them kids.
And I'm barely exaggerating. Part of the deal between the USDA and schools that participate in the National School Lunch Program is that schools cannot speak up about the matter of milk in schools. And in July of 2022, the guidelines around serving milk became even stricter. Not only is every student forced to take a milk container, but schools are prohibited from offering an alternative drink, like water or juice. That's liquid uncool. Now, I'm sure it varies from school to school and state to state, but typically a student with lactose intolerance needs to present a doctor's note excusing them from the moo juice. And to add insult to injury, schools aren't required to carry lactose-free milk. Many do not because lactose-free milk is mad expensive. Oh, but we live in an age of fabulous plant-based beverages. I myself am partial to oat milk. Surely one of those would suffice, right? Well, not according to the USDA, which states that soy, oat, almond, and coconut milks do not meet the nutritional standards of a low-fat, high-calorie food item. Now shut up and eat your Chuck E. Cheese-ass pizza. Also, let's not overlook the fact that a carton of flavored milk, the most popular choice among children, can contain up to 4 teaspoons of sugar, which is comparable to some juices. But because of the strong dairy industry lobbying groups, milk just gets waved on through the line. And with the direction things are going, it's only a matter of time before schools are forced to serve raw milk. Ah yeah, just what we need. Salmonella outbreak. It's my sleepover and I get to choose the movie. Alright, so maybe the lactose-free kids can just bring their own lunch, eh? Well, that overlooks the fact that many children from low-income families are dependent on the low-cost school meals for daily nourishment. And lactose intolerance is not something that limits itself to Whole Food shoppers that can afford macadamia milk. I mean, seriously, what is this shit? So who does this affect? Are you ready for the numbers? According to multiple sources, about 90% of kids from what's categorized as Northern European and Scandinavian ancestry are lactose tolerant. Meanwhile, it's estimated that only about half of African American and half of Latin American children are lactose tolerant. And it only gets worse. The percentage of lactose tolerance among Jewish kids is 30%, for Asian and Southeast Asian Americans at 2%, and Native Americans from 0 to 15% depending on the tribe. So, you can see how children of color are far more affected by milk intolerance. And the scary thing is that children with such conditions often don't realize that they have it. They just go through their day assuming that suffering from nausea, bloating, cramps, and the occasional vomiting and diarrhea is just par for the course of living. I've had a few friends with this experience. It wasn't until they were adults just having small talk at a party that they had the revelation, like, do you all think it's weird that milkshakes turn your rectum into Niagara Falls? And everyone was like, no, that's not normal, go see a doctor. The point being, as Robert Hunter stated, it is folly to drag kids into a school building and expect them to learn while in a weak physical and mental state. For him, it was about hunger. For the modern child, well, still about hunger, but also a diet that does not adhere to their individual needs. Kinda hard for a student to focus on geometry when they got the cramps and the shits, don't you think?
It's naturally nutrient-rich like no other beverage. Beyond calcium, milk's got B vitamins for energy and protein for lean muscle.
So that was the history of bag milk. Yeah, I had no idea where any of this was going. It was all new to me. And I stand by my defense of milk pouches. To some extent. From a user perspective, milk pouches were fun, handy, and kinda kooky. But they do have their drawbacks. For one, very obviously, they are fragile. And in the hands of a chaotic neutral goblin, they can become a surface-to-air missile. And for another thing, remember that lovely infographic I showed you of plastic bags in the landfill? Well, they may take up less space, but that plastic is going to be around for 20 to 100 years depending on the conditions. And those little straws? Close to 200 years, if they don't get swallowed by a sea turtle first. Milk cartons, on the other hand, might take up more space, but they'll break down after 5 years. Wow, they really had it sucking down that propaganda like so much brown milk. Tastes good with the pine sol that I put on here. Oh, well, that's gonna be a problem. In American schools, milk pouches dropped in popularity through the 2000s. The school district of Omaha, Nebraska did try the pouches once in 2015, to mixed results.
And sure, there is a messy poke every now and then.
Sometimes they kind of like explode because that happened to me.
But school officials say there's been no crying over spilled milk.
And bag milk continues to be a thing in parts of the world, including Canada, India, and South America. But as long as it's not that bag milk inside a bag milk inside a bag milk, we'll all be fine. Maybe I should hold a teacup all the time. Nobody else on YouTube does that. It'd be my thing. I'm kidding, of course. Thanks for checking out my video. I'm glad to be back after this abhorrently long hiatus. What has it been, 10 years? Ugh. Please comment, like, subscribe, and all that good jazz up there. Close the window, go touch grass. And don't forget to share this too, because I don't have much of a range anymore. If you'd like to check out my old stuff, check out the Obscure Archive. As for all my old, decade-old cringe, and I'm sorry for any jokes that did not age well. And I'm sorry for the ones that did. And don't forget, if you like what you saw, subscribe and hit that bell. And if you don't like what you saw, fuck off!